Call to order.
Please.
Mayor Taylor,
Here.
Councilmember Redina,
Here.
Councilmember Watson,
Here.
Councilmember Iyer, Councilmember Briggs, absent. We have a forum.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Regina Watson. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Watson. Regina. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved. Unfinished business. New business.
Yeah,
City staff is recommending some revisions to the established procurement thresholds. And prior to bringing those changes to the council for approval via ordinance, we wanted to run them by this body first to get there were any issues from your perspective. If you recall, back in January of 22, the ordinance was amended to accommodate BBT, and at that time we did some threshold adjustments, moving threshold for requiring city council approval from 25,000 to 75,000. At the time we did that, we added some language that allowed us to have inflationary increases approved via ordinance change. We have, to this point, not done any inflationary increases. And so we're looking to make some those inflationary increases at this time. So what we use for CPI, and we're projecting CPI for the last 4 years, which brings us up to the threshold of just over 90,000. So city staff would like to change the threshold requiring city council approval from $75,000 to $90,000. Coinciding with that change, there is a requirement when we dispose of city property, the threshold requiring city council approval is also 75,000, and we bring that along with it. So anytime we dispose of the city at more than $75,000 at this point where it requires council approval, we'd also look to move that threshold to the same 90,000, so we're staying equal as far as requiring city council approval. And the final request would be to move the threshold necessary for formal solicitations from $25,000 to $50,000. That brings that threshold up to match what is currently the threshold requiring a BBP. So just makes it easier for staff to remember what trigger points if we align some of them. So we're looking to move that threshold up to the 50,000. Relatively speaking, it impacts very few items. We're not getting a whole lot of solicitation requests for any projects between the $25,000 and $50,000 range. We don't really get many capital improvements in that dollar. Or equipment for that these days. $25,000 have not been adjusted in decades. So we're looking to bring forward those changes, and we're wanting to address any questions or concerns you may.
Sorry, is it including any city assets or city property? Is that?
It's any city property or asset that's over the value.
And it's other things that you would anticipate any major. Doesn't feel like we have a ton of assets.
Yeah. So normally when we are, when we're replacing assets, we bring those replacements to you for approval. We indicate in there that we're going to auction. So we notify you anyway, but there isn't really a whole lot in that.
Would the inflation adjustment be ongoing? If not, is why not?
So it requires an ordinance change each time we change it. So if it's a slight move, it likely wouldn't be something you would see annually. We'd probably do it every couple of years, depending on how inflation is.
So the ordinance could not be drafted to apply a
it's in the charter.
Sure. But
that requires it, so it would have to be a charter change, I believe. That would allow us to make the change without. Well, it's supposed to could. Yeah. It's supposed to could. I think the charter just says it requires an ordinance change, so we could propose making an annual inflationary adjustment, but I think it's a little hard. We have to make a mechanism to communicate it to internally to staff as well as city council what that would be, but we certainly could.
So I see what you're saying. So it's like if you did a CPI adjustment and next year, you know, the threshold is like 92,000 or 93,500, that's a little.
Right, it's not worth maybe.
Yeah. So.
I guess I understand what kind of the most purchases contracts is still a pretty small number. I guess I wonder about some of our consultant contracts that seem to be kind of getting close to that threshold. If they're in the $100,000 range, do we have a lot of those like consulting contracts that would maybe fall in this between 75 and 90 range that suddenly council wouldn't see anymore? I guess that would be my only question.
I can pull numbers on that.
I guess this, for my part, I have no problem with the visibility, but I also want to provide for the flexibility and efficiency. Could be that rather than if we move forward with inflation adjustment either to date or in some kind of rolling inflation adjustment based on bands or whatever, however it's useful, that there be visibility on contracts that have been issued for the amounts rather than requiring the full hoo-ha of prepping for council meeting and then council. Does that make sense?
So we'd be attaching them similar to what we do with that source. Now,
it's fancy.
Administrators' communication comes to you showing here's the
I would,
consulting.
I think that certainly meets the visibility need and doesn't require it to get on the agenda at a particular time. It has to wait for a particular thing and has to be keyed up in the way they get keyed up.
How does that change what we're doing right now? Does that change what we're doing?
Yeah, we have anything that exceeds a certain threshold has to go for threshold.
No, other than that, do we report right now?
No, not on.
So that would be, just so I understand.
Yes. So we do report on social specials. So we would just add it to communication.
Is that a burdensome process?
I think it would be a lot easier than bringing them all separately.
So, yeah.
It seems like a more than fair trade-off.
And then I guess the other question I have is this empowers you to make these decisions without coming to council for approval, which certainly allows flexibility in timely situations, things like that. I assume it does not require it, and so if there's an issue that you would like to bring to council to get, you could always do that even with president. Okay.
Inflation adjustment to the 25,000 threshold.
Makes sense.
Yes, yeah. So for my part, great. I would also be supportive of some kind of rolling mechanism. And whether you wanted to implement it every 2 years for your own efficiency purposes, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe every 4, the other rolling average within the years.
Yeah.
Even numbers, yeah.
We will put together some. Thank you.
Thank you. Where are the games? Unmanned aircraft systems.
Yay.
We've got to upgrade to the system, just no soundboard to add the extra antics with it next time. So I've had the pleasure of working with my counterparts, Chief Anderson, Chief Kennedy, Sergeant Pennerly's assisted, as well as all of the service area administrators in reviewing current and potential uses that would assist in the service delivery here at the city, which has kind of guided the creation of a citywide policy that covers all of the service units. So I wanted to start off first by kind of going through like our process in creating that policy, the things we've reviewed, kind of best practices, and how we got to kind of our end goal policy. So first, of course, ACLU, a lot of organizations that are currently in operation, of course, law enforcement, there's a lot of information on their participation in the drone space. National League of Cities, also a recommendation from Michigan Municipal League on best practices as well, Government Accountability Office. So all of these were reviewed for best practices, any feedback to ensure we include the information in the policy in order to move forward. Some of the primary and consistent things that we heard across the board were kind of dwindled down on the ACLU recommendations, which are policy implementation, ensure there's a policy in place, and we're here. Limiting the usage, so detailing within that policy how we're going to limit use and ensuring that's across the board. Data retention, accountability, and under no circumstances, lethal or non-lethal, do we utilize drones to send out any weapons. So first, policy implementation, is detailing the expectations and limitations up front. I think first and foremost, in understanding drones, it's not necessarily the technology and what the technology is doing. It also goes down to how it's being utilized and who that end user is, how they're trained, what department they're within, and what the intention of that use is. And in developing the policy and setting out our privacy expectations and being clear on that intention, we've addressed that issue in moving forward. Also making sure that it's clear, written, and open to the public. This policy has, again, included all service area units, has been flipped, turned upside down just to ensure that the uses are clear, understood within all service areas and for all the uses that would be permissible. And lastly, again, ensuring that public representatives are supportive of utilizing drones, especially for local government within the community. Limiting the usage. For other service areas, it's again, detailing the boundaries of the policy, privacy being very important, ensuring that in training and in, when we get to implementing standard operating procedures within each unit, that they understand the strong boundaries that we have with the policy and the expectations. For law enforcement specifically, ACLU has very specific limitations where they're issuing drones, or I say throwing them in the air. They're throwing them in the air when they have a warrant in an emergency and with specific and articulable grounds for a specific criminal act. And I think even in the policy, as you'll review, a violent criminal act is typically where we're going, where there's an actual public safety issue at hand that needs to be dealt with. Data retention, of course, being a local government, we comply with the Michigan retention records. We can expand those or limit those based on how the public body sees fit, but that we follow those retention limits. So if we're collecting things, obviously for public safety, there's a requirement based on whatever the case is involved. If we're collecting information with, regards to water testing, there's a requirement that we comply with those records and what was tested and how we report those to EASL. And so there is a requirement within the policy to ensure that we are retaining documentation and what is collected. A part of data retention also has to do with accountability, which leads next into oversight, right? Into dashboarding. Specific units will have the ability based on the technology that they have to dashboard those flights. There are requirements to have documentation of all flights recorded and the purpose of those flights. So if there is a question that a drone was thrown up behind my house, and if it was city, we would have the ability to go to those service units and identify what that purpose was. Dashboarding, especially important when it comes to the police department, accountability and enforcement, is being able to track where those flights were. So it wasn't, I didn't do that. There's actual documented, and they actually have shown the system into how exactly the system is mapped out, and we can actually document and keep record of where those flights are to ensure there is accountability. And then program oversight. It's not allowing everyone under FAA to be an operator and it just kind of fly by day, by night. There's an actual program, there's someone that is accountable for the program, ensuring that the operating procedures are in compliance, similar to having a special unit or special team within a service area. Again, no weapons under any circumstances. Attachments for imaging, water testing, thermal imaging are not considered weapons, don't have the ability to like deploy weapons from them either, but just wanted to be clear that was documented. Policy purpose. So this is the purpose that is detailed within the policy, again, emphasizing the reduced risk to safety, security, and privacy, and ensuring that we're following principles of equity, accessibility, and transparency in how we maintain the documentation and can report out where our flights were and the purpose for such flights. So our program structure, again, citywide policy, we'll have the service area administrators that appoint a program coordinator. Again, this would be similar to a special unit within a service area. So you have an employee that you can identify has the skills, the qualifications to run this program. And again, I got to work with Sergeant Petterly and go into in-depth information into drones, the technology. There are people that are very, very involved and knowledgeable within our organization, specifically within their units, because the skill varies per unit. Being able to test water and understanding the flights, the height, the impact of how the wind goes over the water when you're testing is very different from the fire department being able to fly, the Huron River to find someone or flying through bushes and trees and rumble. So the needed training is also from the program coordinator within each service unit, being able to train under that program coordinator in the specific circumstances that are permitted. So that program coordinator will assign and manage that required training, but our safety unit is also involved. Our safety unit is also going to ensure that the FAA certifications are maintained, that every 24 months their training is done, submitted, and that they remain certified moving forward. Policy requirements. So 3 requirements that you'll also see that are really important in the policy. Again, they have to maintain the record of the flights, including the detailed purpose of the flights, and it's subject to approval and oversight by unit managers and FAA. So this allows for the expansion from not just program coordinators operating it alone, but this also allows where community services, where that service area administrator could be involved and ask questions as it pertains to flights and how that program is being run. Compliance with FAA, again, we're getting into airspace and federal regulations, so we are always, no matter the flight or the reason, must be in compliance with FAA. And recorded data will not be collected, disseminated, or retained solely for the purposes of monitoring activities by the Constitution, again, one of the most important parts to ensure privacy rights. Now we get into the exciting part, the abilities, the approved uses, and how we can really move our service forward in a sustainable way to inspect critical infrastructure and identify corrosion, damage, or needs to towers, bridges, water towers, tanks, or other city infrastructure. Capturing imagery and collecting water to evaluate the water quality, temperature differences, hazardous spills, or sanitary sewer overflows. Helping emergency responders detect hazardous materials, also understanding the physical condition of a building prior to their entrance, being able to see the rooftop, if there are HVAC or equipment up top, being able to see the condition before we actually respond and go into a building. Deploying rescue resources for distressed or missing people on the Huron River. A big piece too with this page that you'll likely identify is the safety that comes with drone use for our team members, our employees, where instead of sending an actual person up to a tower to inspect something, we're sending a battery-powered machine up to actually inspect it. And we're keeping our staff on the ground and safe and reducing that risk. Same thing when it comes to public safety. Instead of sending bodies out onto the river, we're sending, again, a battery-powered machine that can go out, which is replaceable, and our people are. Moving forward to a few additional uses. Missing or endangered people. We've seen this in very recent circumstances where neighboring communities have either lent a hand in allowing and assisting us in searches or offered even as searches have closed, aiding in fire suppression efforts, collecting data when it comes to wetlands, green space, parks. It's much easier to fly the drone across 160 parks versus sending a body out to do so. So trying to be very efficient in the operation. Looking at our equipment, battery packs, again, things that are in hard to reach places. Providing aid in a disaster response or hazard mitigation planning, looking at traffic flow and infrastructure planning, aiding investigators and safety managers in scene analysis through aerial photos and capturing conditions. One of the main things I think is so interesting, especially working with safety, is being able to capture what the circumstances were in detailing the incident. So in recent situations that we've had, the actual contractor will send something up to take the imagery, but it'd be great for us to have that documentation versus just written kind of correspondence of what the conditions were. But seeing a picture or a video following, you know, a bigger incident was really important. And one of the fun pieces is for CTN, you know, supporting a lot of the things that the city does in the development, the tourism, illustrating our operations, and different things that are happening. I adore the photo of the Michigan Stadium with the beautiful greenery, but those are things that are captured through technology like this. Prohibited uses, any personal business of any type, following the state of Michigan to harass, intimidate, target, or discriminate against any individual and perceived or actual characteristics for the sole purpose of monitoring activities that are protected by the Constitution, recording or transmitting images where you have a reasonable expectation of privacy, so your residence through windows, an enclosed yard, absent on warrant or exigent circumstances, conducting random or unintended surveillance activities. So drones aren't just being thrown up and proactively surveilling anything. They're intended, targeted reasons as to why they're being put in the air, or the deployment of weapons. This is language direct from the policy regarding privacy considerations. Again, ensuring that we're very clear with our team on the expectation. One of the things is highlighted here is that we add any precautions, especially related to whatever the flight is utilized for, that we use precautions to emphasize the privacy. So even if it's deactivating imaging devices as you fly to the operation site of whatever it is you're using the flight for, we're ensuring that those things are in place to utilize the drone. Accountability, again, included in the policy, is very clear for employees that are utilizing it, that the city will take prompt and appropriate action if the policy is violated. And there's a separate section that if it is willfully violated or identified that it's willfully violated, that they'll be discontinued from further use and will be subject to discipline up into including discharge. So here we've got some agencies that I know you guys have seen before that are utilizing drones within their community for many different reasons. And I have some exciting photos to show. So the top and bottom photo here, I don't know if it's gotten down to Washtenaw yet, but this is from Macomb County. It was actually within my former jurisdiction where it was a balloon mechanism for sewer overflows that would be held underground. This is a 2.5-year project, but this is an image of they've gone out over the construction site, one, to monitor safety, ensuring that people are wearing hard hats during the project, capturing the photos as it's developed, but then you'll also see just the carefulness in the front yards and how it's utilized. This project is on a main thoroughfare and cross those front yards, but how it's utilized and how the images are captured kind of emphasize that. And the priority point is of the construction site there. But it helps as the project is moving forward in ensuring that all the regulations are followed and, ensuring that the project is moving along. It's also difficult. This was several feet underground. Actually, I had to go down and touch the balloon, but it was at least 8 different flights down. And so being able to see far down or fly the drone up and down to watch as the development happens and to be able to take the photos, because once this is closed, a road is paved back over it. And so being able to see what that infrastructure looks like and to hold on to that as time goes on, and maybe in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and probably they would wish longer, when maintenance comes to be, we know what underground looks like and what that development happened. The bottom left is a photo of, again, in St. Clair Shores, their combined sewer overflows go into the lake. And so one of the images that they tend to follow is when there is a heavy rain situation, they tend to fly, throw a drone up and fly over to see the impact on that lake water to see. So that dark brown sludge is what has been released. But these are things that over the day, over several weeks, they'll watch as this tends to go out into the lake to really see the impact, but also be able to monitor the impact of the surrounding green space. And the top right, I joined through MML a session in learning about the Edenville Dam break back during the pandemic. And drones were vital. After, of course, the north side kind of left with less than a river, the bottom half essentially had all of the water. It essentially split to the entire community in two. And drones were essential in being able to communicate and fly. I mean, all the roads in that area were washed out. So being able to fly that drone through the area to actually see the impact area and find ways to cross over to maintain connection with the city was vital. I've also shared some of the up and coming things that are happening. Macomb County just issued in May that they're going to use drones and AI for sewer inspections. They actually have this really cool floating drone that can go through water systems. The FAA approved Michigan State Police aerial drone use. Detroit is now using them to advance energy efficiency in their public buildings. Again, another site work being utilized for drones and being able to capture projects long term. GBSU is harnessing drones to combat invasive tree disease and being able to go through West Michigan and identifying concerning areas that have tree disease. Michigan Central has been kind of vital in moving a lot of technology forward, and they've kind of grasped onto drones. Actually joined a session with Mayor Duggan down at Michigan Central, where they're starting to add drones into their water system and identify any issues that they have. So same thing, similar to charging electric vehicles in the roads that are down kind of at Michigan Central. Drones have been a very big investment in moving forward efficiency and service. And that's all. You guys have any questions? Anything that you feel?
I think that this is great progress. I know that this was something that was being worked on long before our budget discussion on this as well. And so I just want to thank staff for digging into this and working on it so thoroughly and taking some of the concerns that you've heard so seriously. And I think particularly doing all of the analysis over the organizations that are weighing in on this, I think it's really helpful and important as well. And so I'm liking what I'm seeing. I think I want to read through the policy a little bit more and sit with it to make sure that there are a couple of things where, like, I don't know that it's necessary, but like for the under unacceptable uses for the sole purpose of monitoring activities that are otherwise protected by the United States Constitution. Is there anything that would grant further protections under the Michigan Constitution? Should we be mentioning Michigan, or like, those are the types of things that I just would like to dig into a little bit more in terms of ensuring that we're kind of creating that balance with civil liberties. But otherwise, I'm really excited for the work that's gone into this. I know that there are a lot of really great uses for this, and so I hope that we can get through it quickly and get it implemented. Thank you, everybody.
Well, I just wanted to highlight a point from kind of our past discussion, because maybe with the chiefs, and just the fact that we do and have worked with Washtenaw County to provide some drone services. I just wanted to bit to Chief Kennedy on some of those recent water rescues that happened. And I don't know if there were times where you're collaborating with Washtenaw County, or I think there was one where you definitely found some unexpected people that you hadn't even gotten reports about.
Yeah, so over the last 2 weeks, we've had 4 rescues. There are four reported rescues where we put the boat in. So obviously one boat, a lot of river. The challenge for us with the river are the dams. And so we've got a kind of best guess of where to put in. And if we guess wrong, then trailer it, move, because obviously we can't take the boat over any of the dams. So that would, and PD has helped us with all those, but the idea would be PD would be able to deploy the drone when they're on duty staff. And so we could cover one section with the boat, they could cover another section with the drone, and be very helpful with that. So for all of the instances that we've had this year, we absolutely would have used it. And had this gone into a long operation, we probably would have called mutual aid. You know, the chief, they had their outstanding fine the other day, and I think you guys use some drones for that too. So, but yeah, it would, there's no question as a matter of if, but how often we would use this once this becomes actualized. So, thank you.
I guess one question as I'm skimming through here quickly. With the data that is acquired through this, is there any need for us to define kind of anything around oversight, auditing what's being retained, things like that? Is this data that would be subject to FOIA under normal circumstances? So is that covered under FOIA? Just making sure that there's kind of that proper oversight as well.
It will be subject to FOIA, yes. And they have these ones to do.
And then on the point around it being unacceptable to record or transmit any location where a person would have.
We have an open meeting. Sorry.
Still unlocked. I'm just.
If you could just maybe
Yeah, ice machine was going. How many quite loud? There's not people back here.
Do we need to define any location where a person would have a reasonable expectation of privacy, or is that something that's already kind of defined in law somewhere?
It's defined in law, but it's basically all the Fourth Amendment search and seizure body of law was defined.
I'm assuming that use in parks to review the parks is all lands on review and open and green and open space and natural areas is in review green space ecosystems. I don't know whether that warrants specificity. I don't see parks or natural areas maybe.
They would take it. Sure. Policy that from the administrator's office. Overarching thing is to not be in silos. Now I have 7 policies, and that's 1, and we're all following the same. So it's easier for us to oversee and the responsibility in the service areas.
I don't think so. Obviously, if I come up with other questions, I'll reach out. But I think, again, just thanks for all the work on this. I know it's been a long time coming, Appreciate individual conversations that I think almost all of you have had with me about, so I appreciate it.
What do you say?
Feel good about the direction.
Is the procedure going from here to bring a resolution for approval or?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, do you want to wait for the next meeting for you all to look at it or the book?
I'm comfortable moving this forward and then allowing if there's any needed change, so that could happen at council.
Or any intervening,
Yeah.
tweet.
Yeah, if there are minor edits, but yeah, I'm comfortable enough with the direction that I would be comfortable. I don't want to delay this for another month.
Awesome. Do you need a resolution on that? One?
Yes, I need a resolution for the body to be used this.
Moved by Irene, a discussion, all in favor, opposed? Thank you. Thank you. City administrator update.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to touch on some operational level things. Next week, we'll run official closure to the SEU director search. We expect to inform council of who that is and go public with it. It's been a pretty good process. We have some good candidates available, and we're very satisfied with it. We're still in the process of implementing our search for a new communications director. As of the last report we got from the search firm, we have 85 applicants for it. And it closes when?
July 21st.
July 21st. So see.
Is that 85,
Some of those are real people.
like
Some of those are not just.
solid applicants, or are they just?
Well, we don't know.
Total numbers.
They're
Okay.
giving us total numbers.
Okay.
Once the cutoff
Sure.
happens, then we'll start the
Yeah.
winnowing process.
Okay.
3 areas to give operational updates from. First, parks. We are seeing a 13% increase in usage from last year in terms of our pools per day. So right now we're doing 934 people each day at our swim pools. Swim lessons are up 23%. We've had 2,900 individual lessons scheduled so far. Day camp is up 14% over last year. Deliveries are holding steady at 1,500 rentals per day. Golf rounds per day is up from 294 last year to 337 per day. So people are using the facilities more and more, and we do track it. In the finance area, we are starting the process to prepare for the audit that starts next week. We would expect to be making a presentation in front of the audit committee come December, following the typical trail that we do. State share revenue is going to be 1% higher than we have projected, which equates to $218,000. And property tax is forecasted to be 2% higher, which is $1.2 million. We're still working on the closing out of the books officially. And there's been discussion over a period of time about state shared revenue being increased in Lansing. Those, I guess whispers are still out there, but even if that happened, that wouldn't affect us until next year. Where we are is where we are. In terms of the fire department and tracking usage of the ambulance, between January and the end of May, we have made 540 transports. 1,053 since we started using EMS units in 2023. 84% of the time, we're transporting in normal traffic. 16% of the time, that's emergency, so that's lights and sirens. 222 times, HVA has had no units available. Which drives home, that's more of an HVA problem than our problem. But had we not had the ambulance, you're tying up a fire truck 222 times to be at somebody's house on a med-related run. On the financial side of the house, our collection rate is trending about 64.5%. I'd like to see that a little higher, which I've shared with Chief Kennedy, but it's a work in progress. As indicated in the previous email, we're looking at a work session on the 28th. There would be 3 items covered that evening. Some feedback on some of the offers for our real estate parcels, client and 415, that would be handled by CBRE. Tree Line needs to give a brief presentation to you, which I'll talk a little bit more about in detail in a minute. And the third and final item of the evening would be some of the research findings that have come from our universal income pilot, offer money to fund. So that would be the work session. So Tree Line, they are asking the city to issue an RFP. They're focusing on what they call the North segment, which is Depot Burn Tunnel across Depot, Summit, and Main Street, all the way to 721 Main. So the city would issue an RFP. The Conservancy would then sort of take it from there, so to speak. They are wanting to get a consultant on board who would do some design and engineering work. Tree Line is already in contact with NDOT and Amtrak. They have entered into an agreement with Amtrak for design phase agreement. And so we would sort of be facilitating what they're doing. They also are trying to get in position to do more fundraising for the project. So they want to come tell you about it at the work session, and then assuming you're supporting, we move forward with the RFP and then go from there. So those are my operational updates.
What would the RFP be for?
In 2019, there was a collaborative agreement that we signed with the Conservancy. It said we would be working with them on the project. So the RFP would be to identify someone who would actually do the design and engineering work that they would actually conduct. But the city would be the issue of it. They would also, I guess, take some of this design work and use it as a basis to fundraise. They also want to, well, they're going to try to raise money to actually get the work completed. And it all zeroes in on this north segment that they're looking at. They are anticipating the consultant will take about 18 months to work on this gateway. There's engineering. Got a slide here, but when they come in front of you, they're going to show you. It's a good job of explaining. These are their notes, not mine. But that's all I had for today.
I know that this has been discussed also, but there, if you could just remind me, they were asking maybe for an appropriation, was it from the state or the federal for their design? You said
they were on our
earmarked list, but it did not get approval for it. But we were told in advance that a project like that in the climate we're in would be something reviewed positively. Right. Like to come, they come back. Yeah, they come back.
The RTI. That's our consultant. That's our design consultant.
I haven't really talked to them about it. I guess we'll find that out. My understanding is they plan to cover all the costs. For us to issue an RFP, it's time.
Okay.
It's not really.
So they will be paying the consultant. The consultant will be paying.
They'll raise the money to pay the consultant. So if they don't raise the money, then they're clear we're not making. They're not asking.
On the ambulance,
Yes,
you mentioned the recovery in the 60s.
yes.
How much is that? What sort of level of cost recovery is that?
You know how much money?
What I mean is like, we're capturing, like, I infer from that 60 some odd % of users are billed and paid.
Mm-hmm.
Are those receipts half of the cost of the service, third of the cost of the service, 75%, 120, 270? What is it?
So
Generally speaking.
there are 770 of them that are considered billable. Total charges, $361,900. Total payments, $173,000 plus. Write-offs, $23,000, meaning they're uncollectible. I guess the easiest way to think of it is every time they transport anybody, there's a $225 cost. We're trying to get, some people have insurance,
Yeah.
Some people pay out of pocket, some people have not just private insurance, some people work for an employer that covers it. So the financial side of the house is having to sort of catch up with the street level side of the house. And some cities would say 65%, we're in good shape. That's just not a style for me of managing things. I want a higher level of wanting than that. So I have to work with the fire department towards that. That's what we do.
But we have 150,000 and it's billed, well, is the cost 150 generally? Is it close to cost? Is it close to cost recovery? I'm just.
Right now, we are not quite.
Wondering if it's scale, like we had another.
Another ambulance?
Yeah, I'm not saying we should or could, but there's capacity.
Yeah, I can't really answer your question. What I will say is Chief Kennedy has his conversations with HVA, and I have mine.
Mm-hmm.
So in the conversations I had with HVA, they were concerned when we bought our first ambulance and more concerned when we bought the second one. So they wanted to ask me sort of where the city is going. My feedback to them is if your capacity was better, you wouldn't have bought the first ambulance.
Going to transport people who.
So it's amicable,
Sure.
but as you know, I can kind of be hard-nosed about certain things. Well, we can't tie up trucks. So we got a truck at somebody's house. We need the truck to clear. We call you, you say you don't have anybody available. But we got a truck sitting at somebody's house for X amount of time before we either bring another vehicle to take them on to the hospital, somehow clear that truck. So the ambulance is a much more efficient way for us to do what HVA is not doing.
Yeah.
They've been articulate about how they serve multiple counties. I'm simply asking them to serve us better. So
Bless them, but
that's kind of how the conversation.
yeah, but if they are not, and we're close to cost recovery, might be not.
Well, we've had some growing pains with it because we had a period where we were transporting too frequently. So the chief had to work through that. But I hear what you're saying. We'll see where we are at the end of the year. This will revisit.
Any good questions for this one? It's good. Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, just real quick and say about this, but with the increase in usage of the tools, I was wondering if the city doing anything differently to market that, or is it just because this has been a sort of a hotter, more humid summer so far? Theories on that?
Councilmember, actually, I don't.
Okay.
I just asked 3 areas to get me stats on kind of what's going on, so I can share it with you all.
Okay.
But,
Always good that it's growing in that.
but clearly, our residents are using our facilities, and I would add, some people are not Ann Arbor residents, but they're paying from these facilities too. Which is okay.
Yes, sure.
And I think also highlights the excitement around expanding our water capabilities, like with the 5
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a COVID effect on the way too. I think to say we're even still seeing people returning. And there were big investments, I think, especially in pool, just some kind of little things for the user experience that I know we saw our 2 years ago too. So we tend to take sort of a holistic approach, particularly when you're talking about kids. So if you've got kids in camps and pools and individual lessons, those are positive activities that kids are involved in, which lessons where you're maybe having other issues on the other end. And so it's good for us to have these facilities, which clearly are popular. So it's a pretty good story.
Yes.
But as I started, I'll just say again, we do track what we do. That's all.
I only have one update. So when Mr. McDonald retired after a long time, Mr. Frost stepped into his position, which left a vacancy in Mr. Frost's position. So we have been recruiting and we have some great candidates. We lost a couple. We lost one to the courts and one to the Secretary of State, so that is back. But I'm hoping that we will make a decision by the end of this month and have a new team member by next month, hopefully. So that's all we update. Thank you.
Is there any information or upcoming business? Public comment?
Comments are directed at politicians, not at staff. I don't expect any response. I haven't had one in the past, but I've been asked by state and federal officials if I have clearly communicated my concerns at the city level. And this is my attempt to do it once again. I want to talk about three critical issues. The first one is the deteriorating downtown conditions and underreporting of crime. And this is not a reflection on the police department in any way. We know that they don't have the accurate system that they need. We know that there's a lot of political pressures being put. You guys probably all know that a 58-year-old homeless man was injured by a box cutter last night and ended up in an emergency room. That's just one example. Also, there was a fatality at the corner of Huron and 4 a few weeks ago. That area is still not acceptable in terms of there was a hole in the ground that I then put a cone on. I went today and someone patched it, but it's not completely patched. And also there's still a bunch of debris, looks like blacktop or something that's there. As a former council member, that's not my job, but it definitely is someone's job. It needs to be done. Number 2, negligence in sightline enforcement and rising pedestrian crashes. We're at an all-time high for our serious and fatal pedestrian crashes, 10-year high. Michigan just reported today that their fatal and serious crashes are down this year, so it's not a trend in Michigan. Chapter 40, section 3.14, I've been joked around for years about that. The vindictive, dangerous behavior has to stop. I am willing to work with anyone. And what I want to tell you is the city of Dearborn, where we have some staff now, as does the University of Michigan, has a new president. They have an excellent ordinance. We could easily use that ordinance as our base. And in addition, we need to identify the public right-of-way to people. People do not know where the public right-of-way is. People are having landscape companies put vegetation, beautiful shrubs, trees, Christmas tree looking trees in the public right-of-way. Then when we come back and say we need to put a sidewalk in, everyone's really upset. It would be so much easier to let people know in advance what needs to be done. Also, if you're on a street that doesn't have a sidewalk, why not at least have the ability to step off the curb to a safe area? So I hope we can do that. I think I'm at 3 minutes, so I will stop other than to say the two-way cycle track on Miller Avenue is, as far as I know, within the Lara organization being investigated right now. And I hope we can get that resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who would like to speak at public comment? Seeing no one, public comment is closed. So the motion to adjourn, please move by. Redeem higher discussion. All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.